So hello everyone. As he said, my name is Free. My real name is Afriye, but I'm lazy and I'll let you say it wrong. So you can call me Free, or we can work on Afriye together. I never thought that I would have, like when I came to college, that it would be a thing to say your name, your major, and all that. And I'm thinking, like, when I get into the real world, when I like, hey, my name is Free, I'm a senior. Oh no, not anymore. So my name is Free, and I am a senior, 4th year. It's went by fast. And my major, as you would see on the little thing, is biochemistry and molecular biology. And a lot of the service I do is centered around my career aspirations, which is to be a doctor. So specifically an OB/GYN. So this is my presentation on healthcare and OTR and Not on the Run tour by Beyonce. Healthcare in Over the Rhine, Cincinnati, Ohio, which is an hour away from my hometown in Dayton. And I did not want to go home. That was just too much. But I did want to stay close to home and see what healthcare was like in my area, because in Dr. May's class, love Dr. May's, Healthcare Studies 101, I learned a lot about healthcare in America overall, healthcare in other countries, what's good about it, what's bad about it, what can be changed. And I knew from my personal experiences what healthcare was like, but I wanted to actually, from knowledge with the theoretical perspective, see and experiences how that related to my hometown and how I could change that one day maybe when I'm a doctor and be able to have some input on healthcare. So this is a recount of my experiences as a care coordinator, which I will explain to you, in an underprivileged neighborhood. So I worked between 2 different facilities, in Over the Rhine and one on the western side of Cincinnati, which was a little more underprivileged than Over the Rhine. Oh, that'll do it. Okay, so what is Crossroad Health Center? Crossroad Health Center was born in 1992 from a conviction that God is concerned for the poor. And I'm pretty sure we can all agree with that. In response to community input, the healthcare center was established to address the needs of the whole family. And that includes medical care, that includes behavioral care, that includes spiritual care. And as Crossroad was established to, with God in mind, the spiritual aspect is a big part of Crossroad that I noticed. It was many times that I came into work, which was 40 hours a week, had a 9 to 5, did not enjoy it. I don't know how people do it. But it was a lot of times that I felt down, and the chaplain was always like, even if you're not religious, like, hey, what can I do to help? And every time I felt that way, the chaplain would offer to say a prayer for me, with or without me, and immediately I felt better. And that was also available for patients. So you can imagine how your mood helps in health, and I saw that a lot at Crossroad. So there are prayer rooms in all of the 5 locations. There are prayer rooms, chaplains, and counselors available for patients. So who gets care at Crossroad Health Center? So Crossroad now has more than 33,000 patient visits per year, and that is amazing because Crossroad helps underprivileged neighborhoods. They all their locations are centralized in these areas, and they address the needs of the whole family from all backgrounds. People who do not have health insurance or has not a really good health care plan. Their mission is to give honor to Jesus Christ by providing accessible, comprehensive health care in partnership with patients and community, leading to healthy, changed lives. And I'm going to tell you how that works. So as a care coordinator, I was tasked with closing the gap between the clinical and the self-management for all patients. So as you know, doctors can only do so much, especially because they're not at home with patients. And they do not have the time to call patients and make sure they are coming to appointments or scheduling appointments or following their plan. The only time the doctors can check on that is when the patient is at the doctor's office. unfortunately, we're in a time where doctors no longer do house visits, which might be something worth reconsidering. But when doctors did house visits, they could see the environment that the patient was living in without them having to tell them and open up to them. They would see that environment and understand the proper care necessary. So the care coordinator's role, my role over the summer, was to be that gap, to go the extra mile, to speak to patients, to help the doctor get an understanding of what's going on, how do we get the patients here to see the doctor, and how can we help. And I also was in contact with the providers and constantly speaking to providers about what I could do to help. So my patients that I focused on suffer from chronic conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, asthma, those sort of things that come from, we'll talk about the variety of determinants of these health factors. So I tracked care to ensure that an improved health outcomes and decreased expenditures in healthcare spending. Well, that was the goal, but it's harder. It's harder than what it seems. So my day-to-day responsibilities, I would go on the system, Athena. I had a password and everything. I felt like a real doctor. And I made a list, and I'm telling you about 1,000 names of people that I needed to call. And I narrowed down the list by inputting the determinants for chronic illness, such as an HbA1c level, which is a determinant for diabetes, lower than 9. People who are at risk for hypertension or have hypertension, those who are above a certain age and need a pap smear or a gynecological checkup, those who are above a certain age and require a mammogram screening. Those are the factors that I put in, and I generated a list. And on that list, I called patients and I spoke to them, just like, hey, how's your day going? And that's how I started every conversation. Hello, how are you? My name is Free. How are you feeling today? And that question alone allowed patients to open up to me and be receptive to any help that I had. How many times do you have someone call you from, say, like a insurance company or whatever, and they don't ask you how you are? They're like, hey, do you have diabetes? Like, no. Is it time to die, basically? I've had so many people call me looking for Darlene, asking if there's anyone in the household over 60 or anything like that. No one ever asked me how I was doing. And I do believe that if someone asked me how I was doing, I'd be like, hey, well, today's not a good day. Thanks for asking. So that immediately opened it up and allowed me to speak to the patients comfortably and honestly. And a lot of patients, I was very surprised. They definitely told me how they were doing. And I'm sitting there like, okay, well, we have a real plan here. We got to get you in. So I assessed and addressed their needs, such as, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well, transportation. Why aren't you making it to your appointments? What can I do to help? That was my job. And if it was out of my range of abilities, then I would, of course, connect them with someone who could help better. But most of the time, it was very small things. I also helped them manage their own account online. They had, access to Athena with their own password. And they were able to actually, now this is the interesting part, they were actually able to see when they were due for appointments. So all it required was them going online and checking up when their next appointment was due for, or their instructions for their care. Now you could probably think of a couple of reasons why patients did not do that and why my role is even necessary. And there are a lot of social factors that contribute to that. How many people have laptops? How many people have internet at home? How many people have access to the internet in order to go on this online service and check for when their appointments are due? Who has the time? So that is where I came in. So on the surface, I noticed really? Time went by so fast. Okay, I'm going to speed it up. On the surface, I noticed that patients that I spoke with had no time off work. It was the summertime, so they had no one to take care of their kids to come to appointments. Transportation was hard, and they also had an interesting mistrust of healthcare professionals. So going into the theoretical, I read The American Healthcare Paradox by, I'm going to tell you, it's by Elizabeth Bradley and Lauren Taylor. And basically what the American Healthcare Paradox talked about is America is spending too much money on healthcare with poor outcomes. And if you ever did the research, you would know that we spend 2 times as much money than any other OECD country and we are out of 34 of those countries, we place 25th in maternal mortality, 26th in life expectancy, and 28th in low birth rate. So that is a big problem that needs to be addressed. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the story of Joe, but it seems I don't have time. But I do want to point out that there are many social determinants to health factors in a patient's lives. And what we learn is that it is genetics that determine our future. However, we see that genetics is only 20%. Healthcare is 20%. And social factors place a crazy 60% of factors. But social care is not, spending is not as high in social care as it should be. I believe, and what I've seen, is that social factors are the biggest determinants in accordance with theoretical of health determinants. If we think about Joe, let's not talk about Joe. Let's talk about a couple of people that I've seen with my work. There was a guy who had a knee replacement but needed to come in for his for a follow-up on his diabetes. However, his only form of transportation was the bus. Now, if I just got a knee replacement, I would not be walking 5 blocks to the bus to go check on my diabetes. It's impossible. So it's things like these that prevent patients from getting to their appointments, but there's no way to help those patients. So care coordination was nice because there are transportation services that people do not know about that are available for free. So one of my jobs was calling those transportation services and making an appointment for the patient at the doctor's office, and also making an appointment for someone to pick them up, bring them, and take them back home. And those are things that would not be possible without the help of care coordinators. So my summer experience really what allowed me to dig deeper into the medical field, so that I believe I'll be a better doctor knowing what I've known and experiencing what I have experienced, and seeing these different conditions and understanding the social determinants that contribute to their health outcomes, and hopefully being able to better serve my community because of my new understanding.